Hi, this is Dr. Rob Cywes. I am the Carbaddictiondoc, and we focus on a ketogenic way of eating. It's not a diet, though, it's a way of life. And in order to live that way of life in a sustainable long term fashion, we have to understand how the body works. And today, we're going to discuss how the liver works and how to protect and use your liver to help you to be healthy and not to be fat. The liver is the center of our metabolism. It's where all the action happens. The muscles, the pancreas, all those things are bit players, but the liver is the place of action. So, one of the things about the liver is it is the liver's job, from a genetic and historical perspective, to provide sugar to the bloodstream. It is not our mouth's job to provide sugar to the body. Yes, it benefits us from time to time during periods of starvation historically. But if we never ever ate a carbohydrate again, we'd be absolutely fine because the liver provides that sugar. And it's done through a hormone called glucagon and triggered by other hormones called cortisol. And the liver turns amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, and fatty acids, glycerol, into sugar. And it maintains our blood sugar at a low level around 70 to 80 and keeps it a flat line. Very safe. From a feedback perspective, insulin's primary job is not to remove sugar from the bloodstream, but the primary job of insulin is to regulate glucagon and to reduce glucagon's production of sugar and in that way regulate our blood sugar. When we eat a lot of carbohydrates, we now ask insulin to do a different job. We're asking insulin not only to dampen glucagon, but also to remove that sugar and force the liver to produce fat. Well, when you eat carbohydrates in a chronic excessive way, and your liver may be a little bit resistant to insulin because of the chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption, your liver is still busy turning sugar to fat. But because of the abundance and the frequency of that system, it's kind of a conveyor belt problem. The conveyor belt is moving, it's producing all this fat, but the liver is slower at shipping the fat to your fat cells than it is at making the fat from sugar. If you're eating tons of sugar, there's a rate limiting step to how quickly the liver is able to ship that fat to the fat cells. Remember, this primarily was made by my liver when it converted sugar to fat. That's how we become fat. That's how we become obese. So when all that fat accumulates in the liver, what's that called? It's called a fatty liver. The liver, the human liver, as opposed to a shark's liver, is not intended to store fat. A shark's liver actually stores fat because that's where the shark gets buoyancy from. Whole separate discussion. So shark livers are naturally fatty, and it's a biological adaptation that allows the shark to float. Humans don't need to float very much. The human liver does not do well when it stores fat. It is not a fat storage place in the human body. In fact, the best liver has no fat in it. But the best liver produces fat from sugar in small amounts to store during and after a meal. But a fatty liver is exclusively a non-alcoholic. Sorry, let's remove alcohol from this equation. That's a whole different talk. But non-alcoholic fatty liver comes exclusively from the conversion of chronic excessively consumed sugar and starch, carbohydrates, into fat. Before the fat can be shipped to the fat cells, it accumulates in the liver, causes inflammation in the liver, affects the liver cell membranes, and you get steatohepatitis, inflammation of the liver cells. I have seen that in the laboratory. I've caused that during my Ph.D. Okay? So there's a difference between small amounts of fat accumulation in the liver that then gets shipped out, and this abundance of fat that inflames the liver. And the commonest cause of liver disease right now is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, fatty liver caused by chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption. So everybody gets all sophisticated about, oh my God, what's happening in the liver? If you don't eat carbohydrates for 2 to 3 days, you cure fatty liver. You cure non-alcoholic steatohepatitis in 2 to 3 days by not eating carbohydrates, irrespective of how much fat and protein you try to eat, because your body won't let you eat that to abundance. How do I know that? I'm a surgeon. I'm a bariatric surgeon. I see the liver visibly. I touch the liver every single day in operations I do. I have biopsied thousands of livers. I know absolutely that you can cure fatty liver disease by not eating carbohydrates. Obviously, it comes back when you do, but you can sustain fatty liver disease in remission by not eating carbohydrates. Period. So that's fatty liver in one segment, and we'll do that again in another episode. However, what's also important to understand is this, okay? Anytime you eat a meal, even if it's just a ribeye steak, genetically, the liver will always preferentially convert whatever calories you've eaten into a little bit of sugar. Now, sugar is not fat in the liver. It's sugar. It's called glycogen. And the liver can store anywhere from 400 to 600 grams of glycogen when it's maximally loaded. Again, I became an expert at glycogenating livers very quickly during my Ph.D. work with rats and pigs and humans. So we can store sugar very, very quickly in the form of glycogen in the liver. Why glycogen? Because glycogen doesn't suck up the water. Glucose is attached to water. Glycogen excludes water, although it has a little bit. The liver doesn't swell up that much. So glycogen, 1,4 and 1,6 chains, are stored in the liver, and the reason they get stored in the liver is as a protective survival mechanism. So if you're a hunter-gatherer and you come around a rock in the old days and there was a saber-toothed tiger, the liver could say, whoa, cortisol, hit glucagon, get the liver to release sugar into the bloodstream, so you've got a spike of sugar to be able to try to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. In the morning when you wake up, you squirt a bit of that sugar into the bloodstream. You don't have to make it because that process is too long. You've got it readily available. But as long as the liver has a little bit of glycogen stored, and there's a threshold for that, as long as there's some glycogen stored in the liver really doesn't have to go to your fat cells to get fuel. So therefore, you're not losing weight, or you reduce the amount of time that you're losing weight. So anytime you eat a meal, even if it's just a ribeye steak, it can be a pure ketogenic meal, the first thing that happens during and right after that meal is your liver stores some of that protein, some of the glycerol. It converts it through gluconeogenesis to sugar, to glycogen, and it stores that glycogen. And as long as that glycogen store is in the liver does not need to go to the fat cells for more energy. And that process after a meal typically lasts anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So even if you're doing intermittent fasting, you've got 2 to 4 hours where you're not burning fat because you're burning sugar. But it's not enough to cause your CGM to go up. It's keeping your liver, your sugar basal, but it's enough to keep the sugar supplying systems functioning. It's only when your liver reaches a critical low threshold of glycogen that it goes to your fat cells and says, hey, give me some energy from your fat cells. That's how you lose weight. So, understanding that concept, if you can shorten the time period by which the liver is using glycogen stores after a meal, you get into fat burning much faster. How do you get the liver to release more sugar? Physical activity. And physical activity is not exercise. Because here's the way it works, and I've done this on a CGM. When I'm putting my shoes on to go for a run, the liver already begins to release some sugar. Now, don't be a smart ass and just try to put your shoes on and not go for a run, because your brain knows. You actually have to go for that walk or that run, but it doesn't have to be long or far. So physical activity is different from exercise. But frequent moments of physical activity, parking your car a little further away and walking in for an extra 20 seconds, making your bed in the morning, washing the dishes after a meal, taking your dog for a little walk, carrying something at the store rather than pushing a cart. Throughout the day, there are moments where we can increase our level of physical activity. And physical activity does two things. Preemptively, the liver will release some sugar from the stored glycogen into the bloodstream. So you empty your liver. But the other part of frequent little moments of physical activity is that they have a mind-cleansing effect. They are a little endorphin rush. And if you can build your body, I call them action snacks. If you can troll your day for looking for opportunities to be physically active, not only is that physical activity making you feel good, remember always to give yourself props, to allow yourself to feel the pride of intentionally doing little bits of physical activity, but also you're releasing sugar from your bloodstream. And in that way, you're shortening the time that the liver is responsible for your energy needs and increasing the time that your fat cells are responsible for your energy needs. So frequent physical activity has the duality of a mind cleansing role as well as a liver emptying role. And it doesn't have to be exercise. I don't care how restricted you are from a physical active perspective. You can be in a wheelchair. You can still do something that's physically active. Don't use your physical limitations as a roadblock to be physically active. You may not be able to exercise, but if you can breathe, you sure as hell can be physically active. Go out and do it. Empty your liver, feel good, give yourself praise for physical activity. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please click the subscribe button and become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And if that message resonated with you and made you think, and you made a decision to do more to help yourself, but you need help, please come and see us. Set up a consultation. We can do it in person in my offices in Palm Beach Gardens at 561-627-4107, or in Jacksonville, Florida at 904-410-3934. I also do some long-distance consults telephonically or on Zoom. Set that up as well by calling 561-627-4107. We help people to manage their diabetes better and also to get started in obesity management. Or if you've had bariatric or obesity surgery and are struggling, give us a shout. We can help to get you back on track.